Confidence is often misunderstood. People think it has to be loud. They think it must shout, perform, and fill every silence. But real confidence does not scream. It does not beg for approval. It does not try to dominate by noise. True confidence is quiet. It sits in stillness. It stays calm when others panic. It does not announce itself, yet everyone feels its presence. This stillness is not weakness. It is a discipline, a strategy, a way of carrying yourself that turns silence into strength. Nonchalance is the heart of this discipline. It is not apathy, not laziness, and not indifference. It is the power of deliberate restraint. It is the ability to remain calm in the middle of storms. It is the refusal to be pulled into every game of ego or insecurity. And because most people cannot do this, nonchalance becomes rare. Rare things attract attention. Rare things create power. This script will break down the psychology of nonchalance. It will show why stillness beats noise, why restraint beats desperation, why the calmest person in the room almost always wins, and how you can apply this in business, in leadership, in relationships, and in life. We will move through 7 chapters. Each one will explore a layer of this skill, from its roots in power dynamics to its dangers to its mastery. By the end, you will see why nonchalance is not just a style, but a weapon, a blade hidden in silence. And when used well, it makes you untouchable. Confidence is not in the crushing handshake. It is not in the polished smile that hides fear. It is not in endless talking to avoid silence. True confidence lives in stillness. It is the ability to sit without performing. It is presence without begging for validation. When others expect a reaction, you remain composed. That calmness is power. It unsettles people. Because most are reactive. An insult comes and they snap back. A crisis appears and they panic. A temptation shows up and they leap. Their emotions are easy to read. And what can be read can be controlled. But the nonchalant person gives no signals, no predictable reactions, no visible patterns. And that creates uncertainty. Uncertainty breeds hesitation. And hesitation is where power lives. The loud man spends his energy trying to prove himself. The nonchalant man spends nothing. He guards his attention like treasure. He knows that every reaction is currency. Every explanation is a payment. Every defense is a transaction. The one who reacts least loses least. The one who chooses silence gains the most. This is why calmness feels like dominance. It is not that you do nothing. It is that your nothing forces others to move first. They reveal themselves. They over-explain. They grow frustrated. And while they burn energy, you conserve yours. The still man becomes larger in imagination, smarter, more dangerous, more powerful. Even if he does less, he is seen as more. This is the paradox of nonchalance. Silence is not emptiness. It is a signal. It is a shield. It is a weapon. When you refuse to fill space with noise, others begin to project. They imagine what you think. They fear what you may know. They hesitate because you give them nothing to measure against. This is why silence is powerful. It forces people into their own minds. They reveal their insecurity, not you. Silence becomes leverage. Most people rush to speak. They explain. They justify. They defend. But in doing so, they hand over power. They show their cards too soon. The nonchalant man does not. He holds back. He waits. He lets silence grow heavy until others cannot bear it. And then they break it themselves. That is when truth comes out. They overtalk. They overshare. They underestimate. And all the while you remain still. This is not passivity. It is active control. It is timing. It is psychological warfare without a raised voice. Because silence makes people uncomfortable, and discomfort leads to mistakes. The calm man sees clearly. The restless man shows his weakness. And in that gap, power shifts. This is why rulers in history wore calm like armor. They appeared steady when nations burned. They seemed unshaken when betrayal spread. Because perception is reality. If people believe you cannot be moved, they treat you as immovable. Soon, you become what they see. This is the quiet mask of dominance, not arrogance, not rage. simply silence that bends others around it. Attention is a currency. Every time you react, you are spending it. Every emotional flicker is a transaction. Every explanation is a payment. Most people waste this currency without thinking. They argue over small insults. They defend themselves against petty attacks. They pour energy into proving their worth. And in doing so, they hand away their power. The nonchalant man does not waste his currency. He guards it like gold. He spends it only where there is value. This is why his presence feels heavy, why his words carry weight. They are not given freely. They are chosen carefully. And because they are rare, they become valuable. People lean in to hear him. They remember what he says, because they don't get it often. This economy of energy is mastery. It is not laziness, it is control. It says, I am untouched. Nothing you do can pull me off center. This frustrates rivals. It seduces allies. It unbalances enemies. They want a reaction. They push. They provoke. But the reaction never comes. So they lose their balance instead. They begin to doubt themselves. They swing harder. They speak louder. They explain more. And with every move, they weaken. The nonchalant man does not chase. He does not beg for attention. He does not explain his worth. He makes others work for it. He turns his restraint into gravity. He pulls people toward him, not by force, but by rarity. This is why he becomes the anchor in a room. When chaos rises, people search for stability. When voices clash, they seek someone calm. And the man who does not spend his energy becomes that center. He owns the rhythm. He sets the pace, not by performing, but by conserving. This is psychological discipline. It is training your nervous system not to react. It is choosing when to speak and when to stay silent. It is knowing that every reaction has a cost, and the fewer you make, the richer you remain. Most people are poor in this economy. They give everything away for free. The nonchalant man builds wealth, and wealth in attention becomes power. Because in human dynamics, the one who spends least always controls most. Stillness is not absence. It is presence multiplied. It is the art of doing less while appearing to do more. When you remain calm, people notice. When you do not react, they start guessing. And in their guessing, they create myths about you. They imagine depth where there is silence. They see strategy where there is restraint. They believe you know more than you show. This is the power of stillness. It turns into a mirror. Others project their fears and hopes onto you. You don't need to perform. You don't need to convince. They do it for you. The man who is loud is easy to read. The man who is restless is easy to predict. But the one who sits still, he becomes a puzzle. And puzzles attract attention. Human nature is wired to seek patterns. When no pattern appears, the mind fills the void. And in that void, power grows. Enemies try to provoke. They throw insults. They spread rumors. They hope for a reaction. But stillness denies them, and the denial becomes the strike. Because while they burn energy trying to break you, you remain whole. While they shout, you watch. While they panic, you calculate. And when the moment comes, your move is sharp. It is sudden. It is decisive. And it cuts deeper because it was unexpected. Stillness, when broken, feels like thunder. It carries weight because it is rare. This is why generals, leaders, and kings have used silence as a weapon. They did not rush. They did not reveal. They waited. They let others act first. And then they struck when the timing was perfect. The nonchalant man does the same. He does not waste movements. He does not waste words. He lets silence work for him. He lets stillness create pressure, because pressure builds in emptiness. And when others can't handle it, they break. This is not passive resistance. It is psychological precision. It is turning restraint into leverage. It is turning patience into a trap. The calmest man in the room does not win by force. He wins because others defeat themselves. They exhaust their energy. They reveal their intent. They expose their weakness. And he simply waits, steady and unshaken. That is the weapon of stillness. A blade hidden in quiet, drawn only when it matters. In business, the impatient man often loses. He rushes into deals. He grabs the first offer. He speaks before thinking. And in his haste, he pays too much. The nonchalant man waits. He does not show hunger. He does not reveal urgency. And because he waits, he often gets better terms. In relationships, the same law applies. The one who clings holds less power. The one who can walk away without flinching holds more, because detachment is leverage. It says, I want you, but I don't need you. And neediness is the death of attraction. In leadership, nonchalance becomes gravity. When chaos erupts, people search for an anchor. They look for someone steady. They seek someone who does not panic. And the calm leader becomes that anchor. He becomes the figure everyone gathers around, not because he shouts orders, but because his composure signals safety. He does not move with the storm. He holds his own rhythm, and that rhythm sets the tone for everyone else. Nonchalance flips the dynamic of power. Instead of chasing, you are chased. Instead of proving, others prove themselves to you. Instead of competing, you let others scramble while you remain steady. This calmness inspires trust, it inspires respect, and sometimes it inspires fear. Because unpredictability unsettles people. If they cannot read you, they hesitate. If they cannot provoke you, they grow cautious. And caution is control in your hands. Great rulers of history understood this. They were not always the strongest. They were not always the loudest, but they had presence. They knew when to remain silent. They knew when to act. And they knew that stillness in the right moment could win battles. Nonchalance is not a trick. It is a discipline. It requires awareness of timing. It requires control of emotion. It requires the ability to stand still when others tremble. The leader who holds this skill owns the room. He does not need to fight for position. His restraint creates it automatically. Others adjust themselves to him. They lower their voices. They measure their tone. They seek his approval without being asked, because presence commands more than shouting ever could. This is leadership by nonchalance, power through calmness, control through composure, influence without force. Nonchalance is not natural. It is not something most people are born with. It is a discipline, a skill built through practice. Most people are reactive by nature. They live on fast forward. They are pinged, prompted, and pulled in every direction. They answer instantly. They panic quickly. They jump at every temptation. They confuse speed with strength. But speed without control is weakness. The nonchalant man trains himself differently. He delays. He pauses. He breathes. He waits before he moves. He waits before he speaks. And because he waits, his actions land harder. His words carry more weight. His presence feels rarer. Restraint creates gravity. But it is not easy. It means resisting the urge to prove yourself. It means refusing to defend every attack. It means accepting silence instead of rushing to fill it. Most people fear silence. They feel it as a void. They try to cover it with words, noise, gestures. But the disciplined man does not fear it. He lets silence stretch. He lets it do the work for him. Because silence makes others reveal themselves. Restraint is not weakness. It is strength in disguise. It is choosing when to act instead of reacting to everything. It is timing your moves so that each one matters. Like a surgeon with a scalpel, precise, sharp, irreversible. This discipline also shapes identity. When you remain calm under pressure, you begin to see yourself differently. You no longer feel like a victim of urgency. You stop chasing closure. You stop begging for attention. You start controlling your rhythm. You start deciding what deserves your energy. And soon the world begins to follow your pace. Your calmness rewires how others treat you. Their voices lower. Their demands soften. Their attitude shifts. Not because you told them to, but because your restraint forces them to. This is the magnetic force of discipline. It is rare. And what is rare becomes powerful. But restraint must be practiced. It requires self-awareness. It requires patience. It requires training your nervous system to remain still. Because the temptation to react never disappears. You simply learn to rise above it. And in that rise you gain sovereignty. The world screams, but you choose silence. The world rushes, but you choose stillness. The world panics, but you choose control. That choice is the discipline of restraint. Every weapon has two sides. Nonchalance is no different. Used with skill, it creates power. Used without balance, it becomes a cage. Too much stillness can turn into paralysis. If you wait when decisiveness is needed, you lose. A general who refuses to give orders in battle destroys his army. Restraint becomes cowardice when taken too far. This is the first danger. Another trap is detachment turning into coldness. If you never show emotion, people begin to doubt you. Allies may feel unseen. Partners may feel uncared for. And in relationships, too much nonchalance erodes trust, because intimacy requires presence. The great ruler can be cold in war but warm at the campfire. He knows when to be stone and when to be flesh. That is true mastery. The mask must not replace the man. If you wear the armor too long, you forget how to remove it. You become untouchable, not from strength, but from hollowness. You mistake the mask for identity, and then decline begins. Nonchalance must remain a tool, not a prison. It is a choice, not a permanent shell. You must adapt. Ice in winter, fire in summer. Composure in public, vulnerability in private. This adaptability keeps you human. It keeps your relationships alive. It keeps your leadership trusted. Because power without warmth becomes tyranny, and tyranny always creates resistance. The wise know when to reveal themselves. They know when to let others see the cracks. Not as weakness, but as proof of authenticity. This balance is what prevents nonchalance from becoming indifference. Because apathy has no pull, coldness has no gravity. True nonchalance cares deeply but selectively. It spends energy only where it matters. It withholds when restraint is strength, and it reveals when connection is power. This is the difference between mastery and failure. The danger also lies in waking hidden enemies. Some can forgive arrogance, but many resent invisibility. If you make people feel ignored, they will strike from the shadows. Not for ambition, but to break the mask you never lifted. This is why balance matters. Nonchalance is not about never reacting. It is about choosing the right reaction at the right time. It is about being unreadable, but never irrelevant. Still when needed, decisive when required. That is the art. That is the blade's edge, because in the end, stillness is not peace. It is the poised edge of power, and those who master it never need to raise their voice again. Nonchalance is not laziness. It is not apathy. It is discipline. It is the art of silence, stillness, and restraint. It is the refusal to give away power through reaction. It is the skill of choosing when to move, when to speak, and when to remain calm. Across these chapters, we explored its core. We saw how true confidence is quiet. We learned how silence becomes a weapon. We understood attention as currency. We saw how stillness builds mystique. We uncovered how nonchalance shapes leadership and influence. We studied the discipline it requires, and we examined the dangers of imbalance. The calmest person in the room wins, not because he is the strongest, not because he is the loudest, but because others spend their energy while he conserves his, because others reveal themselves while he remains unreadable, because others panic while he stays still. This is the power of nonchalance. It makes you untouchable. Not because you look unbothered, but because you are. It rewires how others treat you. It shifts the rhythm of interaction. It gives you the blade of silence. And silence cuts sharper than noise. But remember the final law. Nonchalance is a tool, not a prison. It is strength when chosen. It is weakness when it becomes your mask. Use it wisely. Use it deliberately. Use it as both shield and sword, and you will command presence without ever raising your voice. If you found value in this breakdown of psychology and power, support us. Like this video, subscribe to Psychology Insights. Join us as we uncover more truths about human behavior, influence, and the hidden dynamics of the mind. Stay calm, stay deliberate, and remember, silence, when mastered, speaks louder than words.